Hi, my name is Keith Varnum, and I'd like to share with you how I met Saint Germain and the gang. The gang is what I call the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters are beings that have ascended their emotional programming, their conditioning, and become masters of their fate, masters of their destiny. These beings are envisioned and experienced in thousands of different ways throughout the ages. Everyone has a different way of experiencing them, interacting with them, and holding them in their consciousness. For me, I met Saint Germain as the Bogeyman when I was a small little boy. When I was a young boy, I sensed an energy in the room. I didn't have those words, but it felt like someone was in the room, my bedroom, with me. And it scared me. And I had heard about the Bogeyman, so my parents suggested it was the Bogeyman. And my friends did too, so I just felt all those years that there was this Bogeyman or monster, something that was going to get me in my bedroom at night. So for many years, as a small child, I would cover my head with the sheet. And then one day, in fact, I still remember the moment that I realized, it's that moment when we have a realization where we let go of something. We wake up, we take our power back. And I remember the moment that I realized, you know, if this being, this monster, the Bogeyman, had any power over me, this sheet wasn't going to protect me. So right then, I just threw the sheet off, and I never slept with the sheet over my head again. And as I started to lie there and relax into the sense of this energy or heat or presence in the room, I started to talk to it, and it would comfort me, and I started to hear it. First of all, I would feel a sense of warmth and comfort, and I would fall asleep. I would feel peaceful, and I would go to sleep. And then over the years, it grew and grew, and eventually I got to where I could see, sense, and then see a subtle body, an energy body, a light in the corner of the room, and then eventually it became, over the years, it became the shape of a body. And then eventually I was able and am able to meet with Saint Germain and the other Ascended Masters in the physical. And once in a while they'll even let me touch them, because they know that I need, as a human, to touch them to make sure it's real. Anyway, so the Ascended Masters go by many names, the nameless ones, the ancient ones. Some of the names which we have given them as personas is Jesus, Buddha, Saint Germain, Babaji, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, and many, many other beings, Kutami, and many other cultures, many other traditions. When I meet with them in that space of oneness, they don't use names and they don't differentiate between themselves. They're really one consciousness. And I'm one with that consciousness as well. So these beings have guided me throughout my life. Through humans, through books, through movies, and then often more directly through dreams or lucid dreams, or with a small voice inside, or with happenstance, coincidence, serendipity, with signs. And over the years I began to realize that I was being guided, I was being helped and assisted to make good choices for myself. And I learned the signals and signs that they use to communicate with me. And then if they're not getting through prayer, meditation, signs, signals, clues, messages, then very often they would show up as a feeling, an energy. They would drop thoughts and ideas into my head. Or they would even show up as color or energy or through an animal. And I would start to get the message in that way. And then ultimately, if it's a very important message that I might not be getting these other ways, then they will show up in their physical form and we will talk. And they will more or less use language. So the first time I noticed that they were around really helping me out was when I climbed a cliff in New York State in a gorge, and I the cliff gave way and I fell 600 feet down into this gorge, slid straight down. And at the bottom of the gorge, I was not hurt. I had a few scratches, but I wasn't hurt. And then I realized something happened there. Something saved me. The other clue was, it was one of the first times I remember having a total life review. Just before I went down, my whole life up to that age of 16 replayed in front of me as like a video. And I began to see everything and feel everything that happened in my life. I didn't do that much with it then, but then a few years later, I was in college, I was a filmmaker, and I went totally blind, completely blind. And the Saint Germain showed up in my room. It was that familiar feeling, even though I was in my own house and no longer in my bedroom, it was that familiar feeling and energy that was surrounding me. And then the suggestion was made. I got the suggestion to buy a guitar. I didn't play a guitar. I started playing the guitar, and that sound, and that took me into sound healing, which I do now. And that sound helped to balance and harmonize my energy field, I would say. And the next morning, I got my eyesight back. So along the way, Saint Germain and the gang got me out of trouble when I would get into trouble. And very often, the reason I was in trouble is because they would get me into trouble. And by that I mean that I would follow their cues and suggestions and guidance, and that would get me, in a sense, on the surface, into trouble with people, with groups, with situations in nature. And then they would get me out of trouble. So that's kind of been my relationship my whole life. And learning that what I call getting into trouble is actually getting into life, getting into a learning experience where I am forced to go to my intuition. I am forced to expand outside my ordinary parameters. I'm forced to take my power back in order to harmonize the situation. And that's when they've always showed up to help me. One of the main times that they showed up, again, to give me a sense that they're around and to guide me at that juncture, was I was at a spiritual conference in Orlando, Florida. I met a stranger, and we went out to dinner together. And as we were leaving the restaurant, this fellow, Jerry, he was a hockey player and a businessman, and he said, "What do you know about Saint Germain?" out of the blue. And as soon as he said that, we traveled a mile down the road to a 7-Eleven convenience store in 1 second. And we both noticed it, because all of a sudden we were at the hotel and then we were a mile down the road. And we walked back the hard way. But that time travel, spontaneous travel, I've learned to realize when something happens a little bit out of the ordinary, it's often a portal. And it's a portal to a communion or connection or a communication with our guides, whatever you call them, ascended masters or your spirit guides, or your higher self or your intuition. And in this case, we met for a whole week with not only Saint Germain, but also with Jesus and other ascended masters, and they guided us, showing us visions of our future, helping us prepare to notice when we reach that particular activity and to go with it, to embrace it, and not be afraid of it. So they've guided me throughout my life. Perhaps one of the most remarkable times was when I crashed my car, and my physical body died, and then I found myself in the in-between, in a near-death experience, and I found myself surrounded by the ascended masters and the nameless ones, just a sense of God or spirit around me. And we did a complete I was conscious, alert, life review, seeing what I'd come here to do this lifetime and what I had accomplished and what I had avoided, what I hadn't done. The one thing I would like to share about all my encounters with the Ascended Masters is that there is always a sense of total acceptance. There's never a sense of evaluation or assessment or judgment. It's a wonderful feeling of just being totally accepted by society, by these beings, but also by myself, as well as God. And that feeling has always been with me. So after we met in this life review and the near-death experience, my body was completely healed, and that's when I continued my career doing sound healing and workshops and coaching around the world. And along this way, and one thing I felt I might want to share this morning, is that since I was in my early 20s, when I would get quiet in nature or swimming, doing some activity in sport, or just any time that I was in the flow and just very, very connected, or in meditation later on when I started meditating or going to a workshop, this certain phrase would come up, and it baffled me. And the phrase was, "We are the fail-safe seeds to ensure that the creation does not go on forever." We are the fail-safe seeds to ensure that the creation does not go on forever. Now, I never really understood that until after this car crash. I started to remember that phrase, and I started to have it, the gap being filled in, and I started to realize that what it was saying is that each of us has within us the seed of wisdom, the seed of knowledge, the seed of information of how to undo any creation that we find ourselves in that we're no longer enjoying. Conditioning, programming that we bought into some belief, some limitation, a spell, the hypnosis that sometimes we're in, and that within us is the seed that can grow if we nurture it through love, spontaneity, honesty, authenticity, meditation, following your heart. And that's nurturing the seed of knowing how to undo any situation, any condition that is no longer suiting you, that is no longer nurturing. And we have that within us. And that to me is one of the main values of opening up and connecting with your guides, your higher self, your intuition, or as I say, the Ascended Masters, however you envision them, however they show up for you. And this is something we can all do. And I invite you to open your heart in whatever way is natural through you, meditation, movement, sports, dance, any other activity, playing with people, playing with life, art, music, any way that at all that you feel in the flow, in the zone, connected, peaceful, alive. In those spaces is when you can start to feel the support, that you're surrounded and supported by energy, by warmth, by other hearts, by other souls, and that they can guide you, helping you take your power back from where you've given your power away, help you to get your energy back where your energy is being drained, guiding you to a more fruitful life, a more abundant life, a more nurturing life, a more balanced life. And one of the ways to open to these beings or to this state is to notice every time you feel good, and to notice those things that help you to feel good, whether it's a color or a light or just a feeling, and follow those little signs. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the crumbs. Hansel and Gretel, they followed the crumbs that led them out of the forest. Every myth, every story is really about being connected to God or spirit, to ourselves, to love, and to life, to aliveness, to health, and then we lose it and we find it back again. So look and see how you found your way back to yourself, to your center, and learn from that. And that's your path, your ways, your various ways of finding yourself back to your center, to your passion, to your purpose, to your path.